In the heart of the Hellenistic world, a princess was born who would one day hold the fate of an empire in her hands. Her name was Cleopatra Thea, daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh Ptolemy VI and his sister wife, Cleopatra II. She grew up surrounded by the immense wealth and political intrigue of the Ptolemaic court in Alexandria. Her destiny, however, lay not in Egypt, but in the sprawling, chaotic Seleucid Empire to the east. In the year 150 BC, her father forged an alliance that would thrust her onto the center stage of Syrian politics. She was to be married to Alexander Ballas, a man of humble origins who had laid claim to the Seleucid throne. Alexander, with Ptolemaic support, had challenged the ruling king, Demetrius Isota. The wedding was a magnificent affair, held in the city of Ptolemy, a symbol of the new alliance. Cleopatra Thea, now a Seleucid queen, brought with her a substantial dowry and the legitimacy of her royal blood. She bore Alexander a son, Antiochus Vixodionysus, securing a potential heir for the new dynasty. However, the reign of Alexander Ballas was marked by incompetence and debauchery. He quickly lost the support of his subjects and, more importantly, his father-in-law, Ptolemy VI, seeing the weakness of his ally, decided to switch his allegiance. He marched his army into Syria, ostensibly to help Alexander, but with his own ambitions in mind. Ptolemy accused Alexander of plotting against him, a convenient pretext to dissolve the alliance. He then offered his daughter, Cleopatra Thea, to a new contender for the throne, Demetrius II Nicator. Cleopatra Thea, ever the pragmatist, accepted the new arrangement, divorcing Alexander to marry his rival. The swift change of husbands demonstrated her remarkable adaptability and focus on survival and power. Alexander Ballas was defeated in battle and subsequently murdered, leaving the path clear for Demetrius to cut on. Cleopatra Thea was now queen of the Seleucid Empire for a second time, married to a new king. Her father, Ptolemy VI, died shortly after from wounds sustained in battle, changing the political landscape once again. Without her father's backing, Cleopatra Thea had to rely solely on her own cunning to navigate the treacherous court. Her marriage to Demetrius II was not a happy one. He was known for his cruelty and arrogance. She bore him two sons, Seleucus V, Philomentor, and Antiochus VIII, Grypus, and a daughter. The rule of Demetrius II was unpopular, and rebellion was brewing throughout the empire. In 139 BC, Demetrius II made a fateful decision to campaign against the Parthians in the east. The campaign was a disaster, and Demetrius was captured by the Parthian king, Mithridates I. Cleopatra Thea was suddenly left alone in Antioch, her husband a prisoner in a foreign land. She faced the immediate threat of the usurper Diodotus Tryphon, who controlled large parts of Syria. To protect her position and that of her children, Cleopatra Thea knew she needed another powerful ally. She sent an offer of marriage to Demetrius's younger brother, Antiochus Descendants. Antiochus Descendant, who was living in exile, readily accepted the proposal and the crown. He arrived in Syria, married his brother's wife, and became the third husband of Cleopatra Thea. This union was a strategic masterstroke, uniting the legitimate Seleucid line against the usurper Tryphon. Antiochus Descendant proved to be a capable and energetic ruler, a stark contrast to his two predecessors. He quickly defeated Diodotus Tryphon and began to restore order to the fractured empire. Cleopatra Thea ruled alongside him, enjoying a period of relative stability and prestige. She bore him another son, Antiochus Nivens Sidicenos, further complicating the line of succession. Antiochus II, emboldened by his successes, decided to confront the Parthian Empire and rescue his brother. His initial campaign was highly successful, reclaiming vast territories for the Seleucids. The Parthians, alarmed by his progress, decided to release Demetrius II from his captivity. They hoped his return to Syria would create a civil war, forcing Antiochus II to abandon his campaign. Before Demetrius could reach Syria, however, tragedy struck the Seleucid army. Antiochus II was ambushed and killed in a decisive battle against the Parthians. The news of her third husband's death reached Cleopatra Thea, once again leaving her in a precarious position. Almost simultaneously, her second husband, Demetrius II, arrived back in Antioch to reclaim his throne. Cleopatra Thea was forced to accept him back, but the years of separation and her third marriage had created a deep rift. Demetrius's second reign was no more successful than his first, and he quickly alienated his subjects. Cleopatra Thea, fearing for her own power, began to plot against him. She had her own ambitions and was no longer content to be merely a king's wife. When Demetrius faced a rebellion supported by the Ptolemaic king of Egypt, Cleopatra Thea saw her chance. After Demetrius was defeated in battle near Damascus, he fled to Ptolemy for safety. Cleopatra Thea, who was in the city, ordered the gates to be shut against him. Abandoned by his wife, Demetrius was captured and killed, meeting a grim end. With all three of her husbands dead, Cleopatra Thea took a bold and unprecedented step. She claimed the rule of the Seleucid Empire for herself, in the name of her son. She initially installed her eldest son with Demetrius, Seleucus I, as her co-ruler. However, when Seleucus V attempted to assert his own authority, he was swiftly dealt with. Ancient sources claim that Cleopatra Thea murdered her own son with an arrow for his defiance. To maintain a veneer of legitimacy, she needed another male co-ruler from the royal line. She recalled her younger son by Demetrius, Antiochus VIII Grypus, from his studies in Athens. She installed the teenage Grypus as her new co-ruler, intending for him to be more pliable. For several years, Cleopatra Thea was the true power behind the throne, ruling the empire effectively. She issued coins bearing her own image, a rare and powerful statement for a Hellenistic queen. However, as Antiochus VIII grew older, he began to desire real power for himself. The relationship between the ambitious mother and her increasingly independent son grew strained. Cleopatra Thea, ever vigilant against threats to her authority, decided that her son had to be removed. According to the historian Justin, she prepared a cup of poisoned wine for him. She offered the cup to him as he returned from a hunt, a seemingly innocent gesture. However, Grypus had been warned of his mother's intentions. In a dramatic confrontation, he feigned politeness and insisted that she drink from the cup first. When she refused, he revealed his knowledge of the plot and forced her to drink the poison herself. Thus, Cleopatra Thea, the great intriguer of the Seleucid Empire, was killed by her own treachery. Her life was a testament to the brutal, high-stakes game of Hellenistic dynastic politics. She had been the wife of 3 kings and the mother of 2 more. She had ruled as queen consort and, ultimately, as a monarch in her own right. Her story is one of ambition, survival, and the relentless pursuit of power. She navigated a world dominated by powerful men through alliances, marriages, and ruthless action. Legacy was the continued decline of the Seleucid Empire. Torn apart by the civil wars she helped perpetuate. The sons she placed on the throne would continue to fight each other for decades. Cleopatra Thea's tale serves as a chilling reminder of the lengths to which individuals would go for a crown. Her initial entry into Syria was as a pawn in her father's grand strategy. The city of Antioch, with its diverse population, became her new home and political arena. Her first son, Antiochus VI, was used as a political tool by the general Diodotus Tryphon after his father's fall. The child king's eventual death under Tryphon's care was suspicious, clearing the way for Tryphon's own usurpation. Cleopatra Thea's resilience was tested to its limits during Demetrius II's long Parthian captivity. She had to contend with the ambitions of generals and the discontent of the populace. Her marriage to Antiochus Sebenticides was arguably the most stable period of her life. Sardetes respected her intelligence and political acumen, treating her as a partner in rule. News of his great victories in the east brought a renewed sense of hope to the Seleucid court. This hope was shattered by the sudden reversal of fortune and his untimely death. The return of Demetrius II must have felt like a ghost from a past she had moved beyond. Her decision to bar him from Ptolemy was a final, ruthless act of self-preservation. By claiming sole rule, she defied centuries of tradition in the Hellenistic kingdoms. Her murder of Seleucus V, if true, marks her as one of the most ruthless figures of the age. She likely saw her son's bid for independence as a direct betrayal and a threat to her life. Antiochus Epictetus, whose name meant hook-nosed, was initially an unassuming teenager. His years in Athens had exposed him to philosophy and rhetoric, perhaps sharpening his intellect for the eventual confrontation. Court of Antioch under Cleopatra, Thea's sole regency was a web of spies and shifting loyalties. Cleopatra Thea would have maintained her power by rewarding loyalty and punishing dissent with equal severity. The final confrontation with her son was the culmination of a lifetime of political maneuvering. His cleverness in turning her own plot against her showed he was a true student of her methods. Forcing her to drink the poison was both an execution and a deeply symbolic act of justice. Her death left Antiochus VIII as the undisputed ruler of what remained of the empire. However, his reign would soon be challenged by his half-brother, Antiochus IX Cyzicenus, her son by Antiochus Sebenticides. Civil war between Grypus and Cyzicenus would bleed the Seleucid state for another generation. Cleopatra Thea's influence, therefore, extended far beyond her death, shaping the empire's final, tragic chapter. She was a product of a brutal age, and she played its game better than most. Her first marriage to Alexander Ballas was a union of a true princess and a pretender. The people of Syria were initially hopeful that the marriage would bring peace and stability. This hope quickly soured as Alexander's decadent rule became apparent to all. Cleopatra Thea, trapped in the marriage, likely began planning her exit strategy long before her father's intervention. The arrival of Demetrius II's faction provided her with the perfect opportunity to switch sides. Her life with Demetrius II before his capture was filled with the challenges of ruling a restless kingdom. The Parthian threat on the eastern border was a constant source of anxiety for the Seleucid rulers. Demetrius's capture was a humiliation for the empire and a personal crisis for his queen. Cleopatra Thea's proposal to Antiochus VII was a bold gamble that paid off handsomely. The defeat of Tryphon solidified their joint rule and brought a brief golden age to the kingdom. During this time, Antioch was a vibrant center of Hellenistic culture and commerce. The decision by Antiochus VII to pursue the Parthians was driven by a desire to restore the empire's former glory. His death plunged the kingdom back into the chaos from which he had rescued it. Cleopatra Thea's actions against Demetrius II upon his return were those of a ruler, not a wife. She had tasted true power and was unwilling to relinquish it to her failed husband. Her regency marked the zenith of her personal power, a queen ruling in all but name. He managed the state's finances, commanded the loyalty of the army, and conducted foreign policy. The education of Antiochus VIII in Athens made him a different man from his brother Seleucus VIII. He learned the art of subtlety and patience, which he would later use against his own mother. The final, fatal banquet was a tragedy of Greek proportions, a cycle of familial betrayal. Cleopatra Thea's life was a constant struggle for legitimacy in a world that questioned female authority. She used her Ptolemaic heritage as a source of prestige and power throughout her reign. Her multiple marriages were not matters of the heart, but calculated moves on a political chessboard. Each husband offered a temporary solution to an immediate crisis, a stepping stone to her own survival. Her children were both assets and threats, pawns in her game, who eventually became players themselves. The poisoning of her son, and her own death by poison, is a grimly ironic end to her story. She outlasted 3 kingly husbands, only to be outmaneuvered by her own son. Cleopatra Thea remains one of history's most formidable and controversial queens. Her tale is a dramatic saga of power, betrayal, and survival in the Hellenistic age. The political instability she navigated was a symptom of the Seleucid Empire's terminal decline. Rome's growing power in the east cast a long shadow over the internal squabbles of the Seleucids. Cleopatra Thea's focus was always on the immediate preservation of her line and her power. She was a master of crisis management, turning disastrous situations to her advantage. Her story lacks a hero, filled instead with flawed, ambitious characters fighting for control. The cycle of violence she perpetuated with her sons would ultimately doom the dynasty. In the end, her relentless ambition consumed her and destabilized the empire she fought so hard to rule.